Hi, and welcome back to Extra, your weekly LGBTQIA+ news roundup, in which I serve you all the tea so that you don't have to do the deep diving yourself. In this video, I'll be taking you from politics through crime, culture, and sports, all the way to our awards segment at the end with the Slay and also the Ew of the week. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoy this content, please subscribe to my channel, and without further ado, let's get into it. Also, I made the genius decision to put on this beautiful sparkly bronze eyeshadow after I'd already done the rest of my face, so now I have glittery fallout down here. Please ignore that for the length of this video. Thanks. Starting out with some good stuff. One of Ireland's cabinet ministers has recently come out as gay.
I did it.
33-year-old Jack Chambers is the Irish Minister of State for Transport, Finance, Environment, Climate and Communications. And in his coming out statement on Instagram, he did say that he is grateful to live in a country where him coming out as gay and making that statement is something that is increasingly unspectacular, not newsworthy, just ordinary. Ireland currently ranks 29th in terms of LGBTQ+ rights globally, which is pretty damn good. According to two different studies from 2023, 79% of Irish people say that their local area is a good and safe place for queer people to live, and 80% of Irish citizens support legal protections for trans people.
She's European.
All very good stuff, and congratulations to Jack Chambers for publicly coming out. The US state of South Carolina has banned all gender-affirming care for minors. The Republican-dominated House voted overwhelmingly in favor of the bill, which now prevents all healthcare professionals from offering puberty blockers, hormonal replacement therapy, and gender-affirming surgeries to all minors under 18 years of age.
No! God!
This same bill forces all school employees to out any trans children and teenagers to their legal guardians, regardless of whether this is a safe thing to do for the student.
No!
Despite the fact that in the hearing for this bill, a variety of medical professionals warned that this legislation could and will have a detrimental impact on trans children.
You're ignorant.
A couple that spoke in the hearing shared that their trans daughter actually went through years' worth of doctor's appointments in order to finally receive hormonal replacement therapy. It took her 7 visits to an endocrinologist in order to finally get prescribed puberty blockers, and that the positive change that they've seen in their daughter's mental health and the fact that she was able to stop taking antidepressants once she was on hormonal replacement therapy, because that's how big the impact of her dysphoria on her mental health was.
Yeah.
That is actually something I think we should talk about more. The mental health of anyone struggling with their gender and or sexuality, and the fact that taking antidepressants is not something that should be taken lightly. Antidepressants come with a plethora of possible side effects. Brains that are still developing won't benefit in the long run from taking drugs such as antidepressants, whereas puberty blockers specifically are something that only delays the onset of puberty, not stops it altogether. The effects of puberty blockers are very much reversible, and completely outlawing any gender-affirming care for minors is extremely dangerous, not just in my opinion, but in the opinion of the overwhelming majority of medical professionals, and is the opposite of protecting children. We do have some good news in that same vein, namely that the 2 largest trans-supporting organizations in the US have now joined forces and will officially be merging later this year in order to have a greater impact on positive changes regarding protecting transgender people.
Daddy?
In the face of the sea of transphobic legislation that has been introduced, if not passed, but in some cases also passed in the US over the past year and a bit.
Ew.
These two are the National Center for Transgender Equality and the Transgender Legal Defense Fund, And together they'll form a single entity that they'll call Advocates for Trans Equality, A4TE for short. In a statement, the two co-founders have said, "With double the resources, expertise, and fearless commitment to justice, we will be a powerful national organization to lead the next chapter of the transgender rights movement." And while I don't have any more to support on that, I thought it was really important to mention because it shows us that there are people out there doing the good work, that there are people out there standing up for trans rights. All of the stuff that we hear about in mainstream media, I think many of us are aware that all of these headlines around trans people are only a tactic to distract the population from issues that actually affect them and to instill fear of our community so that they'll focus on something else rather than how prices in the supermarkets are going up, how they have less money of their paycheck left over, how their medical bills are just piling up and they're going further and further into debt. All of that stuff, they have less time and brain space to worry about if they're too busy hating on the trans community. So yeah, it's important to know and pay attention to the fact that there are organizations out there that have our backs, that have the trans community's backs, doing the really important work.
I'm obsessed with this.
And Taiwan has its first out gay legislator. Huang, 30 years old, is a member of the Democratic Progressive Party in Taiwan and was elected by the voters in her voting area.
政治史上没有发生过，我们做到了，完成这个历史的时刻。30岁的年轻人在高雄也可以出头天。
Huang only came out as gay in April of last year and has already faced abuse for it, specifically when she became one of many victims of deepfake pornography, which used her picture spliced into to match her likeness. Horrible thing to do to somebody, especially a young woman in politics. Thankfully, the people who made the content have since been convicted and imprisoned, but that just shows you what a target you make yourself by being a queer person in the public eye. And something I wanted to share is that a few years ago, there was apparently some sort of uproar against a queer-friendly children's book. And Huang gave a public statement asking people to keep perspective and to calm down about this, saying, quote, "Gender equality education has never been aimed at cultivating homosexuality. Teaching children about the LGBT community will not turn children into homosexuals." So, I'm excited to have somebody who is not only a member of the LGBT community, but who clearly has her head screwed on as one of the lawmakers in Taiwan. I've decided to give crime its own segment simply because we have two pretty big things to talk about this week. If you don't want the bad stuff, you can skip ahead to culture. I'll put the timestamp down here. I'm just giving you a heads up because the next two things aren't great. As I'm filming this, it is the 20th of January, i.e. we are 20 days into 2024. And already 4 transgender women have been murdered in Mexico. Trans activist and politician Samantha Gomez Fonseca, Miriam Rios, who was a member of the Civic Movement Party, which is the opposition to the current Mexican government, as well as a trans stylist named Gabi Ortiz and a trans woman known simply as Yvonne. 4 transgender women in 20 days is no coincidence, is 100% a direct result of the hate that the transgender community and especially trans femmes have been receiving. And understandably, transgender people in Mexico are scared. In a protest, hundreds of people recently marched to show their solidarity and their strength as a community. And finally, I mentioned this in my last video of 2023, an annual report called the Trans Murder Monitoring Project reported that in 2023, 321 trans and gender diverse people were murdered worldwide, and 94% of the victims were trans women or feminine presenting people. My love goes out to all of the Mexican families who have been affected by losing one of these gorgeous women. I wish all of you strength for as long as you need it, and that you don't need it for too long, and that I hope there's change coming. Hey, this is the halfway point of this week's video, and I'm just jumping in here to say that if you're enjoying this content, please leave a like, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for being here, and let's get back to the video. And this second bit of news in the crime segment is actually neutral, I'd say. The Club Q shooter, this is somebody by the name Anderson Lee Aldrich, who committed a mass shooting in a queer-friendly club called Club Q in Colorado Springs in November of 2022, is already serving more than a life sentence in prison, but has also recently been charged with 50 counts of federal hate crimes, which is the important thing I want to talk about. Previously, Aldrich was only charged with murder and attempted murder, and whatever the legal term in the US is for misusing a rifle, but has now also been convicted of those crimes being motivated by a hate of the LGBT community. The court release states that Anderson murdered 5 people, injured 19, and attempted to murder 28 more in a willful, deliberate, malicious, and premeditated attack, which is really all you need to know. And lastly, the owners of Club Q announced that the club would reopen later this year under a different name in a different location. I am gonna whiz through what happened at the Emmy Awards. Elton John has now achieved EGOT status after winning an Emmy for his Apple TV series. In her acceptance speech, Jennifer Coolidge thanked the evil gays.
I want to thank all the evil gays. You know, I just really.
Which, honestly, is just a slay. Pedro Pascal took his transgender sister Lux as his date, and she looked stunning. RuPaul's Drag Race has won the Emmy for Outstanding Reality TV Competition Series, whatever it is. I'll put it on the screen yet again. And RuPaul said some very important stuff in the acceptance speech.
Listen, if a drag queen wants to read you a story at a library, listen to her, because knowledge is power, and if someone tries to restrict your access to power, they are trying to scare you. So listen to a drag queen. We love you. Thank you.
Niecy Nash-Betts dedicated her Emmy Award to all of the unheard Black and brown women.
I accept this award on behalf of every Black and brown woman who has gone unheard yet over-policed, like Glenda Cleveland, like Sandra Bland, like Breonna Taylor. As an artist, my job is to speak truth to power, and baby, I'ma do it to the day I die.
Queer icon and co-star of The Bear, which is a brilliant show, by the way, if you haven't watched it yet, Ayo Edebiri also won an award. After winning Best Show, 2 of the actors from Bear share a big gay smooch.
Hospitality as a whole.
And lastly, Sarah Kate Ellis, who is the CEO of the LGBTQ+ media organization GLAAD, made an impassioned speech asking Hollywood for more trans storylines and more positive trans representation.
Because what the world sees on TV influences how we treat each other and the decisions that we make in our living rooms, schools, at work, and at the ballot box. The world urgently needs culture-changing stories about transgender people.
The Australian Women's Tennis Open this year is full of gay women, including Russian player Daria Kosatkina, who is an outspoken critic of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and also Russia's stance on the LGBTQ+ community. I have talked in length about what's going on in Russia in 2 previous videos. I'll link them down below. Needless to say, Daria is no longer welcome in her home country and so now lives as an expat outside of Russia. Belgian player Greet Minnen, who made history in 2019 when she played with her then girlfriend as a tennis double, and the two of them became the first same-sex couple to ever play together in a competition. American tennis player Emina Bektas, Argentinian player Nadia Podoroska, and Dutch player Demi Shores. And finally, former Liverpool FC player Jordan Henderson has terminated his contract with the Saudi Arabian football club he's been playing for after 6 months, rather than playing there the full 3 years that he signed on for. Henderson has been a very outspoken LGBTQ+ ally, and his move to Saudi Arabia sparked a lot of outrage and backlash from people who rightly disagree with him representing Saudi Arabia, a country that not only criminalizes homosexuality, but also enforces the death penalty for homosexuality. It is unclear whether that was the reason that Henderson made the decision to come back to Europe. He will now be playing for the Dutch football club Ajax. But what we do know is that the reason he went there in the first place was most likely the pay. I think he has a little bit of reputation building to do again before the LGBT community, who he was such an outspoken ally of for so long, to the point where he was nominated for Football Ally of the Year at the LGBT+ Awards in 2021. I think that'll take some time. And what is extra without our awards? The Slay of the Week goes to soon-to-be organization Advocates for Trans Equality in the US. Congratulations and well done on joining forces in order to achieve more together and pull together. And I hope it gives you, dear viewer, as much hope as it does me to see that there are people out there fighting the good fight and strategizing and thinking about how they can make the greatest impact.
I just have a lot of feelings.
And the ew of the week goes to the rampant transphobia in Mexico, and again, everywhere in the world, but the violence and the murders in Mexico seem to really be at a different level. I don't really know what to say, except that I really hope that we can turn the corner from this current excessive amount of hate that is being directed at the trans community. Trans people don't deserve what's been going on. They're not hurting anybody, they're just wanting to be themselves. And the amount of crime against the trans community is fully thanks to the rhetoric and the narratives that we get delivered through the mainstream media, and have been getting delivered through mainstream media for the past year or so. Nobody deserves to give their life for being who they are. And that is the end of this week's video. Thank you so much for tuning in again, or if this was your first time watching this, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope you leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. Maybe leave a comment letting me know what was your favorite or least favorite thing this week, or whether I omitted anything that you read about and I somehow didn't catch. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you next week. Bye.